Honourable members, the prayer. Lord, the God of righteousness and truth, grant to our King and to his government, to members of the Legislative Assembly, and to all in positions of responsibility, the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead the province wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideas, but laying aside all private interest and prejudice, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. Please be seated.
Introduction of visitors. Introduction of guests.
Honourable members, the member for Edmonton Decor has an introduction.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise and introduce to you and through you to all members of the Assembly 63 of some of the brightest minds in this province of Alberta, located right in the grade 6 class of Kildare Elementary School. So happy to see them here today. Looking forward to seeing what they will bring in the future. I would ask that they all now please rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of this Assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very pleased to introduce to you and through you to the members of this Assembly, students from Steinhauer School in the glorious area of Edmonton, Rutherford, and they're accompanied today with their teacher, Danielle Hancock. I'd ask them to all rise and receive the warm... my voice today.
The Honourable Member for Camrose.
Try again next time.
Here, today I would like to introduce to you and through you not only one, but two classes from the Viking School with their teachers, Mrs. Josephson and Mrs. Culbert. Please stand and receive the warm welcome of the Chamber.
The Honourable the Minister of Education.
Speaker, I would like to introduce to you and through you my better half, the love of my life, my greatest supporter and my greatest champion, my husband of almost 39 years, Darren LaGrange, and I'm blessed to have him in the gallery today.
The Honourable the Member for Fort Saskatchewan, Bagotville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to this Assembly a number of individuals who have been very involved in helping Ukrainian newcomers settle in life in Alberta. We have with us today Heather Cornier from the Ukrainians in Sherwood Park Facebook page, Claire and Neil Hayes from Sleep in Heavenly Peace Canada, as well as Mike Thomas and Sherilyn Michaels from the Edmonton Host Ukrainians Facebook page. I ask that they please rise and that the members of the Assembly join in me in giving them a warm welcome.
Are there others? The Honourable the Member for Drumheller-Stettler.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to rise and introduce some friends of mine, Cam Baker from Nutrien. With Shared International, I'd like to introduce Alyssa Karen and Greg Paholka. I'd also like to introduce Darcy Park from CF Industries, and joining us from Fertilizer Canada, Daniel Demers and Dustin Pike. Thank you for being here today. Please stand.
Are there others? The Deputy Premier has an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my privilege to rise today and welcome members of the Calgary Construction Association and the Edmonton Construction Association. Both organizations play a big part in communication between the government and our industry partners, helping us ensure that we get the job finished safely, on time, on budget, and at the best value for Albertans. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Are there others? Seeing none, the Clerk.
Ministerial statements. Member statements.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge West.
Shortly after forming government, the UCP removed the rate cap on auto insurance after being lobbied by their insurance industry friends and insiders. Almost immediately, car insurance skyrocketed, with some increases as high as 30%. Worst of all, these increases happened in the middle of the pandemic when Albertans were driving less. And so now, fast forward 3 years, Albertans pay the highest auto insurance rates in the country. We have heard from many Albertans about these increases and how they're worried about keeping their vehicle on the road. Albertans asked government to get insurance rates under control, but the UCP refused. We introduced a bill to freeze auto insurance rates, but the UCP wouldn't even debate it. Then, in January, the government finally brought in a rate freeze, or so they said. But on March 1st, several companies were approved for double-digit increases to auto insurance rates, despite the freeze supposedly coming into effect on January 26th. Let's be real. This rate freeze is a fake. Just like the natural gas rebate, which has not provided $1 of support to Albertans, and the so-called electricity rate cap that actually piled $200 million of debt onto Albertans' bills. Here's what's not fake. UCP plans to take away your CPP retirement savings and hand it over to an untrustworthy premier to finance separatist dreams. Here's what's also far too real. After the election, though, a politicized UCP provincial police force that no one wants and a $20 billion giveaway to the premier's small group of friends who want the people of Alberta to pay for them to clean up their wells so they can turn around and spend a bunch of money on unseemly, dishonest American-style attack ads on the NDP. Here's the basic reality, Alberta. Any promise this use...
Order. The sad consequence of this is the honourable member for Lethbridge West gets to start again.
Shortly after forming government, the UCP removed the rate cap on auto insurance after being lobbied by their insurance industry friends and insiders. Almost immediately, car insurance skyrocketed, with some increases as high as 30%. Worst of all, these increases happened in the middle of the pandemic when Albertans were driving less. Now Albertans pay the highest auto insurance rates in the country. We have heard from many Albertans about these increases and how they're worried about keeping their vehicles on the road. Albertans asked government to get insurance rates under control, but the UCP refused. We introduced a bill to freeze auto insurance rates, but the UCP wouldn't even debate it. Then, in January, government finally brought in a rate freeze, or so they claimed. On March 1st, several companies were approved for double-digit increases to auto insurance, despite the freeze supposedly coming into effect on January 26th. Let's be real. The UCP auto insurance freeze is a fake, just like their natural gas rebate that has not provided $1 of support to Albertans, and their so-called electricity rate cap that has actually piled $200 million of debt onto Albertans' bills. Here's what's not fake. UCP plans to take away your CPP retirement savings and hand them over to this untrustworthy premier to finance her separatist dreams. Here's what's also far too real, but after the election, a politicized UCP provincial police force that no one wants, and a $20 billion giveaway to the premier's small group of friends who want the people of Alberta to pay for them to clean up their wells so they can turn around and spend a bunch of money on unseemly, dishonest, third-party American-style attack ads on the NDP. Here's the basic reality, Alberta. Any promise this UCP government makes, especially one that purports to make life more affordable, is dishonest nonsense. Feel free to ignore anything they say, Alberta. They don't mean a word of it. One more reason to elect an Alberta NDP government on May 29th.
The honourable member, order. The honourable member for Camrose.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta has the best health care workers in the world. Alberta's government will work to make sure Albertans can get the care they need when and where they need it. Simply put, we need more doctors and nurses and healthcare staff. But, Mr. Speaker, I have heard from my constituents that their children aren't being accepted into medical school in Alberta, even though they have mid-90 averages. In fact, Mr. Speaker, on average, our institutions turn away 2,800 qualified nursing applicants each year due to limited capacity. And, Mr. Speaker, on average, our medical schools turn away 2,300 qualified applicants each year. But, Mr. Speaker, this government is taking action. Budget 2023 invests nearly $200 million to help train the healthcare staff we need and ensure young Albertans can get into the programs they want right here at home. $72 million will go towards creating nearly 3,400 new seats in healthcare programs, with over 1,800 new seats for programs like nursing, 1,500 new bridging seats for internationally educated nurses, and 120 new physicians. And $113 million will help add 100 new medical residency positions and support physician training in regional centres and rural communities. And to quote U of A Dean's Medical School, today we are investing in the future of each and every citizen in the province and moving towards making our vision of equitable access to health care a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Lacombe-Ponoka has a statement to make.
Mr. Speaker, the communities I represent in Lacombe-Ponoka are home to farmers who work hard all year to put food on our plates, Albertans who wake up early and don't stop until the job is done. Through freezing winters and long hot summers, they feed the world and make Alberta proud. Today, I speak to the importance of safety and well-being for our farmers and agricultural workers. This is Canadian Agricultural Safety Week, hence the Safe Ag pin. Canadian Ag Safety Week is an initiative that aims to promote safe and healthy practices across the industry. Agriculture is an important sector in our economy, and it's crucial that we ensure the safety of those who work in it. Farmers and ag workers face many risks every day, from heavy machinery, dangerous animals, and hazardous climates. It's important that we raise awareness about these risks and provide resources to help prevent accidents and injuries. This year's theme for Canadian Agricultural Safety Week is Be an Ag Safe Family. The theme focuses on the importance of making safety a priority for everyone in agriculture, families, employers, and employees. It's important that we work together to maintain a culture of ag safety, where everyone feels informed and empowered to speak up about safety and take steps to prevent accidents. During Canadian Ag Safety Week, there are many events and activities, workshops, webinars, social media campaigns, all aimed at promoting safe practices and raising awareness about risks in agriculture. These events are an opportunity for us to learn from each other and share best practices for keeping our families safe on the farm. I encourage all Canadians to participate in Canadian Ag Safety Week, whether you're a farmer, a farm kid, a farm worker, or an Albertan who cares about the safety of our farm families. There are resources and tools available to help you think and be safe. Let's work together to enhance a culture of safety in agriculture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may this year's Canadian Ag Safety Week be a success.
The honourable member for Edmonton Ellerslie.
Mr. Speaker, there can be no greater investment than investing in Albertans and Alberta. This has been something that I've always believed. Give Albertans the chance and the opportunity, and they will succeed. And while I thought this would be a universal sentiment shared in this House, the recent actions of the government have shown me and my colleagues loudly and clearly that this government actually opposes investing in Alberta. The Minister of Jobs actually attacked our proposal to support the Lakeland Business District in St. Albert, a critical project that will create 7,000 jobs and importantly grow the economy of St. Albert, the surrounding region, and even the province of Alberta. It's the first time ever that I've heard a Minister of Jobs attacking a proposal to create jobs. But that's the UCP. The members opposite are quite happy to spend Albertans' money on the Premier's donors. They're scheming to hand out $20 billion to a small number of bad companies to clean up the messes they are already legally obligated to clean. The difference in this chamber could not be clearer. That side of the House wants to shovel Albertans' tax dollars to the Premier's friends, and on this side of the House, we believe that investing in Albertans and investing in job creation are the smartest investment you can make. Albertans can choose a government focused on them in just a few short weeks.
Hear, hear, hear.
The honourable member for Sherwood Park.
Mr. Speaker, last year Russia began an unlawful invasion of Ukraine, forcing millions of people to flee their country in an emergency. Alberta has long-standing ties to Ukraine, with hundreds of thousands of Albertans being of Ukrainian descent. Alberta sympathizes with Ukrainians and has welcomed thousands of evacuees who are looking for safety from the war in their homeland. Mr. Speaker, Alberta is a place that is filled with people who seek to help others in need. Therefore, Albertans have formed grassroots networks of volunteers that are providing support to thousands of Ukrainian evacuees here. These groups provide information and resources to Ukrainian newcomers in the Edmonton area. They also pick up the newcomers at the airport, host them in their houses, help them get necessary documentation done, and mentor the newcomer families. Special shout out to Sherilyn Michaels, who founded the Edmonton Host Ukrainian Facebook page, Mike Thomas, and former MLA David Dorward, who provide support too. This is a group of about 21,000 people who are residing in the Edmonton area and Ukrainians intending to move here. Another shout out goes to Laurie Cardinal, Heather Cornwallet, and members of the Ukrainians in Sherwood Park Facebook group, which was created to connect Ukrainians in Strathcona County. Hearty gratitude goes to Neil Hayes, Claire Hayes, and the Sherwood Parks branch of Sleep in Heavenly Peace Canada. SHP partnered with Canadian Social Services Edmonton and has provided many beds to Ukrainian children. Thanks to other organizations in Strathcona County that have helped support Ukrainian newcomers, such as St. Nicholas School, St. Sophia Parish, St. Teresa School, Our Lady of Perpetual Help Parish, and the Bilingual Ukrainian Catholic Parents Society. Mr. Speaker, to all the volunteers, we say thank you. With these supports, displaced Ukrainians can live to their fullest while we await an end to the war. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Meadows.
Mr. Speaker, for over 3 years, my constituents have been living through a UCP-created healthcare crisis. They drove family doctors out of Alberta, threatened the pay of nurses and paramedics, drove our EMS system to the breaking point, all while failing to properly fund the system. They also failed to deliver the necessary infrastructure that we will need to ensure that we can properly recover and rebuild the system. In 2017, the NDP government announced the South Edmonton Hospital, the first new Edmonton hospital since 1988. The UCP delayed this hospital time and time again. Now we have a premier who claims it's her top priority, but also the infrastructure minister who blames everything and everyone for his failure to do this job. What should be a hospital under construction is still just a snow-covered field. My constituents have been harmed by this failure. Edmonton is short of hundreds of hospital beds, and that number is going to climb to 1,500 in a few years. A government that cares about the people of Edmonton and their healthcare needs, but focused on getting this hospital built. The UCP doesn't care about the families in South Edmonton. An Alberta NDP government will end this UCP crisis in healthcare, end the excuses, and actually get the South Edmonton Hospital built.
The honourable member for Vermilion, Lloydminster Wainwright.
Mr. Speaker, Ottawa under the Trudeau Liberals has recently discussed the possibility of pushing for a so-called just transition. However, their policy for phasing out our ethical oil and gas sector and putting a cap on oil production is nothing more than an illegal and immoral effort to make hardworking Albertans unemployed and to devastate the towns and cities dependent on our energy sector. Clearly, the Trudeau Liberals in Ottawa do not understand the importance of oil and gas workers to our province, nor do they understand the power that this province has to fill global energy needs, nor the fact that our energy sector provides the money that sustains the economic lifeblood of this country. It is obvious that the Justin Trudeau government, dependent on support from the federal NDP, has decided to push for a policy based on radical and dangerous ideas that will destroy the main economic engine of this country. The track record of this federal government since the Liberals were elected in 2015 has been horrible for this province. Under their leadership, Bill C-69, the oil pipeline ban, has heavily and unfairly regulated our oil and gas industry. We don't need to look hard for examples of how this legislation negatively affected our oil and gas industry. The Energy East Pipeline and Northern Gateway were both cancelled as a result of this legislation. The Ottawa carbon tax has also hurt middle-class Albertans since its implementation. With the federal Liberal and NDP coalition in power, I cannot see Trudeau nor his biggest supporter, Jagmeet Singh, backing down on passing this radical legislation. Nevertheless, Alberta, since the days of Premier Lougheed, has always fought back against Ottawa's attempts to destroy our way of life. Therefore, our government will take up this mantle and continue to stand up for Albertans. We know that the only way to preserve our political, economic, and societal interests is to fight back and never surrender to Ottawa's demands and interests that attempt to hurt and go against the well-being of Albertans.
Honourable members, it is time for oral question period, and the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition has question 1.
Mr. Speaker, every Albertan should have access to a family doctor where and when they need one. But today, more Albertans are watching as their family doctors pack up their bags for BC. Now, the UCP ripped up doctors' contracts, undermined their profession, ignored their concerns, all in the middle of a pandemic. Yesterday, the UCP Health Minister finally acknowledged the serious doctor shortage in this province after years of ignoring it. To the Premier, the UCP created this problem. Does she understand why absolutely no one trusts them to fix it?
Hear, hear. The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know a lot of people trust our health minister to fix it because we're already making great progress on the 3 areas that we identified that we want to make progress on. The next big piece, of course, is establishing a medical home, as the health minister likes to call it, a joint practice with doctors, nurses, and other health practitioners. And that's the reason why we have $2 billion that has been dedicated towards that. And the goal is exactly that every single Albertan should have access to a primary care practitioner so that it becomes the first line of defense if something goes wrong. And we're investing in it, and we're going to do it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the record doesn't make people confident. There are fewer rural doctors working today than there were under our NDP government. And right now, Alberta is also short anesthesiologists. These professionals are critical to getting surgeries done all across the province. Yesterday, the health minister admitted there are fewer of those professionals working today than even last year. Can the Premier explain how exactly Alberta is going to perform more surgeries when the number of these anesthesiologists are actually down, not up?
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this is the nice thing about having an official administrator in place in the form of Dr. John Cowell, because part of the thing that he's discovered is that anesthesiologists are doing different scope of practice in different regions, and that, in point of fact, in certain regions, we would be able to use respiratory therapists so that we can make sure that the anesthesiologists are available for the highest priority surgeries. So what we will see over the next little while is that there is going to be some reallocation. We've done that already on nurses, we've done it already on paramedics, and we're going to be able to solve that problem too.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, those strategies have already been acknowledged as being exceptionally unlikely to work and actually unsafe. Today, healthcare is in jeopardy, and the biggest threat now and always is this UCP government. The UCP have damaged the system, and this Premier's favourite solution is to offer Albertans the choice to pay more. Now, the Alberta NDP will go a different way. We'll ensure another million Albertans have access to family health teams at no cost to them. Albertans know it's true. The Premier probably knows it too. Why won't she admit that a better plan for Albertans who need health care is simply to just vote NDP?
The Honourable Premier.
I was so excited to see the Health Minister's announcement yesterday that we'll be investing $200 million to expand post-secondary health programs and train 3,400 additional healthcare professionals. We have 3,400 new seats in post-secondary health programs across the province. We're investing $113 million to add 100 residency spaces for newly graduated doctors, particularly in, rural areas and, specialist fields. So I would say, Mr. Speaker, that the members opposite should be congratulating our health minister on acting on the things that they think is
the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition for a second set of questions.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll congratulate him on admitting that it's actually it's a day late and many, many, many dollars short. Yes. But, Mr. Speaker, Alberta's wage growth is the slowest in Canada, meaning Albertans are actively losing ground when inflation is at a 40-year high. Yep. Meanwhile, families are paying more for utilities, for tuition, for fees, for car insurance. The Premier's so-called affordability measures all expire immediately after the election, and they can't even properly freeze car insurance even when they're trying, Mr. Speaker. After 4 years, the UCP record is Albertans paying more, earning less. Why are the only Albertans getting the break? Her donors.
The Honourable Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Albertans are actually earning more than any other Canadian. We have the highest average weekly earnings. The next closest province is $4,000 per year behind us. And then on top of that, as the finance minister likes to note, that if we had the kind of tax system that the members opposite want to have, the next closest tax system would generate $20 billion more. And that means that we are giving essentially a $20 billion tax break to Albertans. So not only are they earning more, they get to keep more, and that helps to defray the cost of the NDP.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that working people will be happy to know that the Premier thinks they're earning enough money. Nonetheless, earlier this week, we learned Calgary has the highest unemployment rate of any city in Canada. Meanwhile, we're hearing from job creators they can't build in Alberta because we simply don't have the workforce they need. This UCP government then went about and cut almost $1 billion from post-secondary education. After 4 years of UCP, Albertans can't afford to invest in new skills, and job creators can't invest in diversifying the economy. Why is diversifying the economy still a luxury for this UCP?
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the UCP came to office, the unemployment rate in Calgary after the way they left it was 6.9%. And so actually the unemployment rate in Calgary is lower than it was during that period of time. We also have the highest workforce participation rate. So we've got a 66% workforce participation rate, which is also the highest in the country. Part of the reason that we have a higher unemployment rate, unemployment is those who are looking for work. There's a lot of people looking for work because Alberta is calling and people are heeding the call. We've got people coming from all over the country and they're going to find those jobs.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, they're not finding them in Calgary, Mr. Speaker. Now, this government cut economic diversification programs that were working.
Yes.
Even this Premier claimed that she understood the value, for instance, of the digital media tax credit. But then she failed on that, too. Now, while the Premier goes off and plans to give $20 billion of taxpayers' money to donors, the Alberta NDP has a plan to attract $20 billion in private investment, creating tens of thousands of new jobs, Mr. Speaker. The best party to increase wages, create jobs, and grow the economy is Alberta's NDP. No question, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable the Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I seem to recall that under the NDP, the most venture capital dollars flowing into this province was about $30 million per year. Last year, we brought in $729 million in venture capital investment, 12% of all of the deals, and 7% of all of the venture capital invested in the entire country. Our venture capital has gone up 30%, whereas it's gone down in the rest of the country. The digital media tax credit is something that is in the minister's mandate letter. He's already indicated that he is consulting on it, needs to do a little bit more work, and stay tuned.
The Honourable the Member for Edmonton Millwoods and the Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this UCP government is refusing to listen to the heroes of the 2016 Fort McMurray wildfire. Bill 9 will be of no help to firefighters who've been diagnosed with cancer before the bill passes, only after. We thought this was a mistake, and I offered an amendment to make sure that all those Alberta heroes and their families are covered. I'm shocked to learn that no, the UCP is intentionally denying coverage to these firefighters. Will the Minister of Red Tape Reduction reconsider his statement that no amendments will be accepted and agree to support all of them?
The Order, the Honourable the Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering why the NDP and that particular member didn't get it done when she was the minister. Now, Mr. Speaker, what I will tell you is we've checked with the WCB and there's no need for retroactivity since there's only one, maybe two Fort McMurray firefighter claims that would be impacted by retroactivity. But, Mr. Speaker, in those cases, the WCB has the fairness process review, and we're being assured by WCB that if that fairness process kicks in, those firefighters have nothing to worry about. There will not be any firefighters from Fort McMurray that will be left behind.
The Order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Millwood.
Mr. Speaker, that is not what the firefighters say. We know of at least one firefighter who fought the beast in 2016 and has died from cancer after exposure to an incredible number of toxins produced by that fire. The family has been fighting a protracted...
Order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Millwoods.
The family has been fighting a protracted battle with WCB. The bill does not protect them, but it's a simple matter of passing our NDP amendment to make sure all are covered. There may be other firefighters who have not even started the claim, and the minister wants them to do a fairness process review. Just fix the bill.
The Honourable the Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Mr. Speaker, the bill is fine as it is. But let's be clear, retroactivity was an option for that government and that member as when they were minister to change, and they did not change it. Why? They didn't change it, Mr. Speaker, because that would be the wrong thing to do. There's a fairness process in place. They take it very seriously. If there's an issue after that fairness process goes through, Mr. Speaker, have the member come and see me. We're going to make sure that no firefighter, no Fort McMurray firefighter is left behind.
Here, here. The honourable member for Edmonton Millwood.
That member represents Fort McMurray. They've been in government for 4 years, and they are consigning firefighters to a fairness process review rather than just making this retroactive and covering all firefighters. Consigning firefighters to fight with the WCB is the wrong answer. We need to support the firefighters who are on the ground. Will they pass our amendment? Will they do the right thing? Stand on the side of the heroes in Fort McMurray and accept the amendment.
Here, here. The Honourable Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Mr. Speaker, fight WCB. WCB is there for the workers. That is the wrong attitude and the wrong approach by this member. No wonder the people of Alberta threw them out. They didn't get the job done when they were there, and they won't do a good job if they ever get the chance to come back, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton, Highlands, Norwood.
I am being inundated by stories from Albertans about how our commitment to provide free prescription contraceptives will change their lives. Lisa wrote to me saying that our policy would save her $400, a huge savings. Heather said that she's been putting off replacing her IUD because she just can't afford it. Amy says she's been rationing meds for years, and this would mean safe, reliable treatment. How can the Premier hear from all these Albertans and still say that they should pay more out of pocket for their health care?
The Honourable the Premier.
You know, Mr. Speaker, I would say that I understand where the NDP opposite is coming from. They don't believe in a public and private mixed system for pharmaceuticals. They are identifying, and we do. We believe in the kind of choice that allows for maximum amount of coverage. And from what I can see, the vast majority of people are covered by the plan. Our private sector plans cover this as one of their priority items. Our Alberta Blue Cross covers it as a priority item for anybody on our benefits. I don't see the need.
The Honourable the member for Edmonton, Highlands, Norwood.
This Premier just doesn't get it, and she's clearly not listening to people like Chantel, who wrote that her prescription costs her $300 every 3 years, despite it being treatment for a medical issue. Michelle told me this policy alone would save her $400. The Premier must be getting some of these same messages from people explaining how this would change their lives for the better. We know, she just said it, the Premier wants Albertans to get used to paying out of pocket for health care. So is that why she's refusing to listen to the thousands upon thousands of Albertans for whom this policy would be truly life-changing?
The Honourable the Premier.
You know, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned, Alberta Blue Cross has the ability for anyone who does not have employer-based benefits to be able to sign up so that they can get the coverage for all of the needs that they have. Everybody has different medical needs, and that's why we allow for insurance companies to take the lead on identifying the right mix of plans and the right mix of pharmaceuticals to cover. And it served us very well. The fact that we have both private and public operating in this environment means that we have far more drugs that are covered so that more people get the coverage that they need for the very specific needs that they have. I don't want to prejudge what other drugs might need to be covered.
The Honourable the member for Edmonton Islands Norwood.
Let me introduce the Premier to people like Jess, who wrote me to explain that her birth control is not covered by any non-group private insurance plans, despite what this Premier continues to say. Megan, she really summed it up when she wrote to me saying, this policy actually doesn't help her, but she just thinks everyone deserves good health care. Yep. Me too, Megan, and all of us as well. On this side of the House, we're focused on getting Albertans the good health care that they deserve. So will the Premier tell, I don't know, Lisa, Heather, Amy, Chantel, Michelle, Jess, the list goes on, so many other Albertans, why she wants them to pay up to get the health care they need and deserve?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, Alberta Blue Cross is the provider of choice for government, for our over age 65, for all of our programs. There is a non-group coverage that is available for those who need it, and I would encourage anybody who wants to get pharmaceutical coverage to go and look at that. We want to make sure that everybody has access to the health care they need. If they don't have it through private insurance, through their company, then they're able to get it through Alberta Blue Cross, and we think that that's the right balance.
The order, the Honourable Member for Vermilion, Lloydminster Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As members of this House will know, there's a nationwide shortage of healthcare workers. Just like other provinces, Alberta is looking to attract and hire more healthcare workers. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, there are thousands of qualified students here in Alberta who don't get admitted into college and university health programs like medicine and nursing because of the lack of capacity. To the Minister of Advanced Education, what is the government doing to ensure students can get into the health programs they want right here at home?
The Honourable the Minister of Advanced Education.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was an honor to join the Minister of Health yesterday to make an announcement of a $200 million investment over 3 years to dramatically expand healthcare training capacity at our incredible universities and colleges. In particular, Advanced Education is investing $72 million to create 3,400 new spaces in healthcare programs. So that's in nursing, in paramedicine, in healthcare aides. In addition, $20 million is going to create 120 new spaces to train physicians. That's a 34% increase, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vermilion, Lloydminster Wainwright.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that answer. I'm so glad to hear about all these new seats. Given that it takes at least 4 years to train a student just beginning their health care training, and given that there is already a shortage of healthcare workers, to the Minister of Advanced Education, what is the government doing to ensure that we train more healthcare workers to join our workforce in the short and medium term?
The Honourable the Minister of Advanced Education.
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the things that we've done, we've started the work going back last year and even earlier, but Budget 2022 invested $26 million to create 2,500 seats in healthcare-related programs. So many of those seats were opened that September, and those students are already in place. In addition, we're expanding programs and supports for internationally educated nurses. These individuals are already here. They're educated as nurses, but they need to participate in additional bridging programs, and we're creating additional spaces in those programs so they can meet the Canadian standards.
The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again to the Minister for that answer. Given that rural Alberta is disproportionately affected by the shortage of healthcare workers, and given that an increase in physician seats means we need more residency positions to graduate doctors, to the Minister of Health, what is the government doing to expand residency positions and support greater rural physician training in Alberta?
The Honourable the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question, and thank you also for his advocacy on improving access to health care, particularly in rural areas. Mr. Speaker, very pleased to stand with my colleague, Minister of Advanced Education, announcing the expansion of to med schools. Now, the focus, one of the key areas of focus for that expansion is going for rural family physicians, and very pleased that part of that programming is to expand the training and where that happens. Initially, we're going to start off with University of Lethbridge and also in Grand Prairie, because when you train people locally, they stay local, and that's our objective.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Even before the Premier won her party's leadership, she was a registered lobbyist for a $20 billion giveaway to a small number of bad companies to clean up messes they are already legally obligated to clean up. As Premier, she continues to push the program, but she's now given it a new name and claims that it's only a $100 million pilot program. But I'm hearing from Albertans who say it doesn't matter what the Premier calls it or the size of the down payment on the $20 billion, it's still a scam. Does the Energy Minister agree with Albertans?
No. I provided caution on the use of the word scam yesterday. I am certain that in the following subsequent questions, the member will govern himself accordingly. The Honourable the Minister of Energy.
You know, Mr. Speaker, it's a sad state of affairs with the Alberta NDP. These anti-oil and gas activists must be tortured watching industry come back to life after they did everything in their power over their 4 years to destroy the resource sector. And desperate, as they fall in the polls, they fabricate a crisis, misleading Albertans, which is exactly why nobody trusts them, Mr. Speaker. This UCP government, we will always stand by energy workers to protect their jobs from the NDP and their NGO friends who are hell-bent on shutting down fossil fuel production.
Provide some caution to the Honourable Minister of Energy. I provided caution with the use of the words fabrication yesterday, and I believe an apology was accepted. The member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Given that member stood in this House and promoted the R-Star program in a private member statement just a year ago, and given that the UCP has already caused damage to our energy industry's reputation through their do-nothing war room and their failed inquiry, and given that Scotiabank concluded that the program goes against the core capitalist principle that private companies should take full responsibility for the liabilities they willingly accept, and the program has a potential to generate negative public sentiment toward the sector, why is the government pushing ahead with a $20 billion giveaway that will cause further damage to our energy industry?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Mr. Speaker, let's take a trip down woke memory lane to expose the NDP's Just Transition Plan. They were the creator of Canada's first carbon tax. They oppose any and all pipelines. They support the West Coast tanker ban, taking a position against our own province. And they're full steam ahead on an emissions cap. They also support the Fed's clean electricity regulations. Mr. Speaker, with Trudeau and Singh behind them, the NDP will continue to sabotage industry. Albertans cannot trust and cannot afford to make that mistake again.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
What Albertans can't afford is a $20 billion giveaway to the industry that it doesn't deserve. Given that the Environment Minister rejected the $20 billion giveaway that the Premier is pushing, saying that it does not align with the province's royalty regime or our approach to liability management in Alberta and the polluter pay principle. And given that the President of the Rural Municipalities Association said the program is exactly how a fox would design a hen house, why is this government refusing to listen to Albertans, economists, and even their own minister on this issue? Is it because she promised her leadership donors $20 billion if she got her way?
The Honourable Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The hypocrisy of the NDP has no bounds. Not only did they create the C-Star incentive program, but in May of 2017, their leader announced a $235 million program to accelerate abandonment and reclamation. She stated, "This is about creating jobs and fixing a long-standing problem." So it was okay then, Mr. Speaker, but not now. What a joke. Remember, the goal of these activists is to end fossil fuel production and to do it at any cost. The NDP cannot be trusted, full stop.
Honourable Member for Edmonton City Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In estimates last week, we learned that the UCP government has made no progress in increasing the number of anesthesiologists in Alberta. In fact, it appears we have slightly fewer than we did at this time last year. This is one of the critical bottlenecks in surgical capacity. No anesthesiologist, no surgery. There are operating rooms and surgeons at our major hospitals sitting idle because of a shortage of these specialists. So can the Minister of Health tell Albertans how many surgeries have been delayed so far this year due to his failure to attract or train more anesthesiologists?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, we are actually increasing the number of surgeries that are being done. We appreciate there's a challenge in terms of attracting and retaining anesthesiologists. This is a challenge not only faced here in Alberta, but quite frankly faced around the country and the Western world. But Mr. Speaker, we have a solution to this. We are expanding the use of anesthesia care team model in Alberta. This actually model is used in other provinces. But what that enables us to do in certain surgeries, allowing one anesthesiology to oversee other team members to be able to provide the surgeries, we're going to continue to invest in surgeries and get them done for Albertans.
Here, here.
Centre.
given, Mr. Speaker, that we're aware that these shortages push the government towards potential experiments with asking respiratory therapists to take on the responsibility of anesthesiologists with full sedation, but given that we've seen no evidence that any other jurisdiction is even considering such a potentially risky initiative, and given that Albertans should not be put at risk because of this government's failures to retain and attract anesthesiologists after actively driving them out of the province, will the minister guarantee that Albertans' safety will come before his government's need to hide their failures before the next election?
The Honourable the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, I have to stop for a minute and take umbrage with some of the statements being made by the members opposite. Mr. Speaker, we have more doctors than we've ever had in this province. When we compare last year over the year before that, 254 more doctors. Now, I appreciate we have shortages in certain areas, and I appreciate we have shortages in certain specialties, but Mr. Speaker, we have more coming in, and I was very pleased to go stand with my colleague to announce an expansion of our med school program, which, by the way, Mr. Speaker, it takes 7 years for a family physician. You know, we wouldn't be in this position if the previous government actually had done it beforehand.
Oh. The Honourable Member for Edmonton City Centre.
Given, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't be in this position if this minister and his predecessor hadn't chased doctors out of this province, if they hadn't torn up their master agreement and continued to pursue those damaging policies in the midst of a global pandemic. And given that we would not be in this position if this government had not continued to raise tuition, if they had not eliminated the fact that made it harder for students to actually want to stay and take residency positions, which in fact went unfilled last year due to the toxic environment this government has created. Mr. Speaker, an Alberta NDP government will make this a province where doctors want to stay.
Honourable the Minister of Health.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to answer some issues substantively. So, number one, in the previous question, we will ensure that the safety of Albertans will be ensured when we actually apply a model in terms of like a broader model. So that's rule number one, and we'll make sure to do that. In regards to the residencies being filled, the honourable member is quite right that they typically haven't been filled over years, including under the previous government they weren't filled. But we understand this is an issue, Mr. Speaker, so we're actually looking at changing the process to ensure that if it isn't filled in terms of the original CARMS process, we can actually get IMGs. Plus, some of these new spots, we're going to do a flow-through without using CARMS.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Hayes has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta's two largest cities, Calgary and Edmonton, are home to many vital public facilities, not just for locals, but the broader north and south regions of the province. As a result, there is construction, maintenance, and planning work that goes into existing facilities and future ones. Given that the province's biggest city, Calgary, will benefit from over $1 billion in infrastructure, 2023 capital plan to the Minister of Infrastructure, what major projects can Calgarians expect to actually see as a result of Budget 2023?
The Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you through you, Tim, the member for the question. $1 billion of infrastructure's $5.4 billion 3-year capital plan is going to Calgary projects such as the Foothills Medical Centre Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, the Peter Lougheed Centre Emergency Department, Mental Health Intensive Care Unit and Laboratory Redevelopment, the Calgary Court of Appeal, and the Calgary Cyclotron and Radiopharmaceutical Facility Project. There are 8 active health facility projects, 3 government facility projects, and 6 school projects in Calgary. There is an increased funding for the Alberta Surgical Initiative Capital Program, recovery communities, and much more.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that the minister knows his stuff, and given that Edmonton is not only our capital, but also a major hub for Northern Alberta in terms of services, health care, and more, and further given that budget
The Honourable Member for Calgary Hayes.
And further given that Budget 2023 outlines $1.2 billion for Edmonton in infrastructure's capital plan. To the same minister,
order. You know what the difference is? Order. You know what the difference is? Earlier today, the member for Calgary Hayes was interrupted by the Speaker for his heckling. Immediately following, he refrained from doing such. Perhaps other members would do the same. The Honourable Member for Calgary Hayes.
Mr. Speaker, $1.2 billion for Edmonton in the infrastructure capital plan. To the same minister, what are some major projects that Edmontonians will see thanks to Budget 2023?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you again to the member. Yes, $1.2 billion, or 22% of infrastructure's $5.4 billion three-year capital plan is going to Edmonton projects such as the Edmonton Hospital in the Southwest, the Jean Wojcicki Centre at Norwood, the Misericordia Community Hospital modernization, the U of A Hospital Brain Centre, Neurosciences Intensive Care Unit, the Yellowhead Youth Centre. There are 7 active healthcare facility projects, 1 government facility project, and 6 school projects in Edmonton. There is increased funding for the Alberta Surgical Initiatives Program, recovery communities, medical device processing, and again, so
the honourable member for Calgary Hayes.
Mr. Speaker, given the minister's on fire, and given that building our vital infrastructure requires constant communication with our construction partners in major cities across the province, and given that Edmonton and Calgary construction associations work closely with the industry to ensure projects are completed on time and Albertans have access to the work on the projects. To the minister, how many construction and construction-related jobs do we currently have, and how many more will be created as a result of Budget 2023?
Honourable the Deputy Premier.
Thank you once again to the member for all his fine work. As I do like to say, infrastructure is the work that puts people to work. So I'm happy to report that currently the active capital projects support approximately 37,000 construction jobs and construction-related jobs. Budget 2023 capital plan is supporting an average of 20,000 direct and 12,000 indirect jobs per year through to 25-26. And I also like to take an extra opportunity to thank the ECA, the CCA, and ACA for all the work they do and the members that they represent, hardworking people all across Alberta.
Order. The honourable member for St. Albert is next.
Last week, the Leader of the Official Opposition committed to funding the Lakeview Business District in partnership with the City of St. Albert. We're a party invested in growing jobs, supporting the economy, and working with municipalities to support growth and development. I can't say the same for the UCP, who ignored this need despite it being a top priority for the region. The Jobs Minister said there's no way the UCP will support this project to create 7,000 jobs. To the Minister, why does the UCP refuse to invest in projects that support economic growth in St. Albert, Morinville, and right across the region?
The Honourable the Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Mr. Speaker, unfortunately what the member said is not correct. This is a great project. We will help them with the regulations. We will help them with the regulatory burden that party wants to put in place. We will help them with any funding initiatives, Mr. Speaker. But what's odd about this is they might not recognize, Mr. Speaker, that this business industrial park services the oil sands, Mr. Speaker. And that means that it's a great project because it's great for the future of Alberta. But how can they possibly live with themselves? On one side they say kill the oil sands, and on the other side they say support corporate welfare to this.
The Honourable the member for St. Albert.
Given just last week the Minister of Jobs openly sneered at this important project, despite the fact that this business park will bring 7,000 jobs for my constituents, and given the Minister can't point to a line in this budget that says this government's going to support this important project, and comments like his are completely undermine the good work of the city and the people of St. Albert, the good economic projects that deserve support, will the Jobs Minister stand here today and admit his comments about the Lakeview Business District were crass, inaccurate, and apologize to the people of St. Albert?
The Honourable the Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Mr. Speaker, I think the member misunderstood. I was actually sneering at what she was doing when they suck and blow at the same time. Sucking and blowing, Mr. Speaker, let me get to that. What that means is on one side, if it's in their constituency, they say it's a strategic investment. But if it's an investment in corporate Alberta that creates the thousands and thousands of jobs, good paying jobs for Albertans, they say no, that's corporate welfare. Mr. Speaker, which is it? Are they just prepared to support their own ridings if they need an investment in corporate? Or is it not, Mr. Speaker? Are they standing up for Albertans or are they not?
The Honourable Member for St. Albert.
Standing up for Albert. Given that St. Albert is a fast-growing and diverse city, and given that that is the most ridiculous answer I've ever heard, and given that the Lakeview Business District is a crucial step in creating jobs that will support the community and grow this economy, given that the Minister of Service Alberta has failed for years to deliver this project despite repeatedly promising to get it done, will the Service Alberta Minister apologize to the people of St. Albert and Morinville for his colleagues' rude and misinformed comments and just commit to work with the NDP and get that Lakeview Business District done?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologize for that member. If the people of St. Albert want to make a good choice, they should elect a UCP member, Mr. Speaker. Now let's be clear, Mr. Speaker. That member, the Minister of Red Tape Reduction, has saved Albertans over $2 billion on reducing all of that red tape that government brought in when they were in government, Mr. Speaker. I don't see that happening again. I think Albertans know better than to hire somebody that sucks and blows at the same time.
Order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I learned that...
Order is noted at 2:24. You can start again. Point of order is noted at 2:24. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverview.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday I learned that Rivera, River Ridge and St. Albert was increasing its monthly rental rates by 10%. This is very concerning. A 10% increase during a cost of living crisis could mean families are left trying to find new places for their loved ones to live or are cutting back on other supports. This is increasing stress on seniors and their families, who often stretch their pocketbooks to get the right care. Will the Minister please explain why the UCP is forcing more costs onto Alberta seniors and their families?
The Honourable Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. This government is actually working towards reducing costs for seniors, reducing costs for Albertans, and while working towards making things more affordable across the board, Mr. Speaker. We index senior benefits as well as supplementary programs. We're investing significantly in building out more affordable housing across the province so that more seniors have a place to call home in the communities that they've raised their families in, that they've built their lives in, Mr. Speaker. That's a huge priority for this government, and we're going to continue to commit to making sure that we're increasing the affordability supply for Albertans. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverview.
Given that the UCP got rid of the seniors advocate, a position I wish existed right now because seniors need support, and given that UCP kicks seniors dependents off their drug plans, forcing them to pay more for the medication they need, and given that the government de-indexed seniors' benefit for 3 years, meaning they lost thousands of dollars that are essential to ensuring seniors can live and age in dignity, will the Minister stand and apologize for the government's legacy of making life harder and more expensive for Alberta seniors?
The Honourable Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again to the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to live in a province in Canada that has the most generous supports for seniors in this country. I realize that it's still a challenge. I've been hitting a lot of doors in my community, talking to seniors on a daily basis and understanding the challenge that's come with this inflation crisis that's created affordability challenges for our seniors. That's why we have added our seniors to our affordability payments to make sure that they get that additional $100 a month for the next 6 months or for 6 months. Talking to seniors at the door, that's having a huge impact for them, as well as trying to address heating bills and other affordability challenges for our seniors.
The Honourable Member.
Given that on top of everything else, the UCP wants to gamble with Alberta seniors' pensions so the Premier can fund an Alberta Revenue Agency and a UCP police force, both things Albertans have made abundantly clear they do not want. Given that seniors will get the chance to protect their pensions from the UCP in just a few weeks by electing an Alberta NDP government, why is the Minister gambling with seniors' hard-earned savings, all while making them pay more to live in the province they call home?
The Honourable Minister of Affordability and Utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I was so pleased to make seniors a focus point of our affordability action plan with our government. A couple of seniors in Alberta are eligible for up to $1,200 together in affordability payments. They're eligible for up to $500 of electricity rebates, and we've fully suspended the fuel tax. So 2 seniors in Alberta could be receiving up to $2,000 in benefit and support through this inflationary crisis from our government. And we're going to continue to be there for seniors.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton, or Calgary Edgemont.
It is ironic that the MLA for Calgary downtown is criticizing that Budget 2023 is not doing enough for downtown Calgary. Mr. Speaker, when he was the finance minister, he probably did the most to drive out offices from Calgary, chase them out of Alberta. In stark contrast, those of us on this side of the House have ever seen an increase in employment and greater occupancy in our downtown office buildings. Can the Minister of Municipal Affairs tell this Assembly what more in the budget for Calgary?
The Honourable the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. My colleague is well aware of many of the projects going on in downtown Calgary, right across Calgary right now, Mr. Speaker, thanks to his time and dedication in the file of infrastructure. He's right to recognize, Mr. Speaker, that we saw a decline in office vacancy in Calgary, the rate now dropping for a second straight quarter as the province recovers from 4 years under the NDP. As the member will well know from his time as Minister of Infrastructure, the government knows the importance of Calgary, and he will know many of the projects in Budget 2023, Mr. Speaker, with $541 million over 3 years for Calgary LRT.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Edgemont.
Thank you, Minister. Given the critical importance of Calgary being our commercial capital, and given that there is a need for schools, hospitals, roads, bridges, and social services in Calgary, can the Minister of Municipal Affairs tell this House about the supports provided by the province for Calgary to build infrastructure that the city deems important?
The Honourable the Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, Budget 2023 includes great news for the City of Calgary, including the widening of Deerfoot Trail, Mr. Speaker, and the new Calgary Cancer Centre, which I know my colleague is very passionate about. Mr. Speaker, that's above and beyond the other dedicated projects for Calgary that are too many, of course, to list in this short time, but it spans, Mr. Speaker, roads, post-secondary, healthcare, education, arts and recreation, with almost $3 billion in the budget because Calgary matters, Mr. Speaker.
Sure does.
For Calgary Edgemont.
Thank you. Given that many Calgarians are concerned about the crime and safety, particularly when they ride the C train or go downtown, and given that often those committing crimes are suffering from mental health and addiction challenges, can the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction tell this Assembly how programs and projects in Calgary around mental health and addiction will help create safer streets in our communities?
The Honourable the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, addiction, homelessness, and public safety issues are impacting every community in Alberta. Edmonton and Calgary especially have, I would say, borne an unfair brunt of that. And that is why we are taking real actions. The Calgary and Edmonton Public Safety and Community Response Task Forces are responsible for implementing $187 million worth of life-saving initiatives in our two largest cities. We are increasing addiction treatment capacity in both of our urban centres, more sheriffs. We're doing this because big cities matter, and we're taking care of them.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Boular-McCall.
So many of my constituents rely on their vehicles to get to and from work. In fact, for many, their cars are their livelihood. They deliver goods, they shuttle passengers, they drive long-haul trucks, and do many other critical jobs. They all need to insure their vehicles. And despite the UCP's promise to freeze the insurance rate, drivers will soon pay a lot more to keep their vehicles on the roads, up to 16% in some cases. How does the minister explain to my constituent that under his so-called rate freeze, the insurance rates are still going up?
The Honourable the Minister of Municipal Affairs has risen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Albertans deserve an automobile insurance system that is fair, affordable, and accessible. This pause is a temporary measure to give Albertans some breathing room while the government explores longer-term solutions, Mr. Speaker, with the members opposite completely ignored. The goal is to steady auto insurance rates in the province and ultimately lower those rates for Albertans, Mr. Speaker. This government has heard concerns from Albertans about auto insurance rates throughout the inflation crisis, so we're working to provide relief. That includes pausing rate increases to private passenger vehicle insurance through to the end of 2023, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Boular-McCall.
Given that this government has once again abandoned my constituents and now they are running misleading ads on Red FM about their fake insurance freeze, and given they have taken the side of the insurance industry just like they did after the Northeast hailstorm in 2020, And given that Alberta NDP has always been there for the Northeast Calgary, while the UCP only listens to their friends and former campaign managers who are now lobbyists for the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Can the minister at least admit to Albertans that his government's first priority has always been their buddies in big insurance?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The rate increases that the members opposite are referring to are from October to December of 2022, well before the rate pause came into effect. We confirmed with the Auto Insurance Review Board that no new rate increases have been approved since the rate pause, just like what we saw with the members opposite and making up information about crop insurance, for example. We don't need the members opposite purposefully causing confusion where it's unwarranted. When the pause took effect, Mr. Speaker, some insurers had already been approved for rate increases, so some Alberta drivers may see those reflected. But, Mr. Speaker, rate changes are also because of things like driving records.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Buller-McCall.
Given that Albertans actually got a break on their insurance rate when the Alberta NDP government put a cap on insurance rates, and given that as soon as they formed the government, the UCP removed the cap and the insurance costs shot up by 30% in some cases. And given that last year, when I brought forward a solution for my constituents' concerns and proposed a bill to reinstate an auto insurance freeze, this government refused to even debate that. How can the minister even explain his fake auto insurance freeze as anything other than a misleading stunt right before an election?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the regulated rate cap under the members opposite resulted in insurance providers pulling back products, including rate plans. We don't want to see that, Mr. Speaker. Ours is a temporary pause to give us time to review and explore real long-term solutions for Albertans. The arbitrary rate cap implemented by the members opposite hurt Albertans, Alberta businesses, and insurance doing business here. The rate cap implemented by the NDP government was hard on Alberta drivers. Many drivers, Mr. Speaker, had to pay for the full year's premium up front rather than monthly, were denied collisions and comprehensive coverage, Mr. Speaker. We've seen rates decline thanks to our Bill 41.
Order, order, order. During the second supplemental, the Deputy Government Opposition House Leader rose a point of order at 2:34. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Castle Downs.
Mr. Speaker, the UCP government turned K-Country into pay country, and they'll pocket about $11 million in revenue from their $90 K-Pass. Despite taking this big pile of money from Albertans, the MLA for Banff-Kananaskis admitted this government doesn't know where the funds will go. Will the Ministry of Forestry, Parks and Tourism finally tell Albertans why they are collecting money from them when they don't even know what they're doing with it?
The Honourable the Ministry of Forestry, Parks and Tourism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for the member for the question. All aspects of the K-Pass are under review. All options are being considered. It's important for me as Minister of Forestry, Parks and Tourism to ensure our review reflects a diversity of options while prioritizing affordability and promoting outdoor recreation and tourism. Rushing our review would do a disservice to those who love Kananaskis country.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Castle Downs.
Given that Albertans who are passionate about our beautiful parks and the wilderness paradise that is a provincial treasure have called for a K-Pass to be axed, pointing out that it betrays the legacy of Peter Lougheed, and as Sean Peter with Bragg Creek and Kananaskis Outdoor Recreation said, quote, "We're paying now to use our backyard." Given that Sean and so many other Albertans would rather see funding added to the parks budget through voluntary methods such as the Parks License Plate Program that we have been advocating for, will the Minister agree that the K-Pass is a bad idea, scrap it, and commit to adopting the Alberta NDP voluntary...
The Honourable the Minister of Forestry, Parks and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks again for the question. And of course, I agree that Albertans love Kananaskis country. There's more than 4 million people exploring that area annually. We want to make sure we have the right solutions. We want to make sure that we support outdoor recreation, public safety and conservation. We want to make sure that we do what's right for the people of Alberta and make sure that they can enjoy the great country of Kananaskis when they have a chance to visit that.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Castle Downs.
Given that no November, a month after being sworn in as Premier, the Premier was asked on a radio show what she thought of the K-Pass and responded, quote, "I don't love it because I think it puts a burden on families." And given that in December she said she'd asked the Minister of Forestry, Parks and Tourism for a review of the K-Pass, but 3 months later all we have are crickets on this issue. And given that the Premier's budget shows she's decided to break her promise and keep the K-Pass, how can Albertans believe a word anyone in this government says when they keep policies they know are bad and which impose new costs onto Alberta families?
The Honourable the Minister of Forestry, Parks and Tourism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thanks again for the question. We have increased funding on parks in Alberta and in Kananaskis particularly. We've put in $1.2 million to maintain over 1,600 kilometres of trail, $500,000 in grants to support trail organizations, and $1.5 million to support public safety and dispatch programs. Mr. Speaker, we are focused on making sure Kananaskis is safe, make sure that people have something to do when they get there, and that we protect and conserve the environment there. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Glenmore has a question to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Southwest Calgary Ring Road is a huge win for Calgary and Alberta. The truth is we can no longer run our north-south trade route through the middle of our city. It has benefits for those in my constituency who are no longer limited to one way in or out of our neighbourhoods. Today, a trip to West Hills takes 7 minutes compared to the previous 25 minutes. We're now looking forward to the West Leg being completed, which will allow us to get to Winsport in 15 minutes. To the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors, can we see the entirety of the Southwest Calgary Ring Road completed soon, and including the West Leg? When will it open for traffic?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And the Calgary Ring Road is a huge win for all of Calgary. And construction is anticipated to be complete next year, and that will help Calgarians spend more time at home with their families versus being stuck in traffic. And Budget 2023 actually commits 9 kilometres of new road on the Ring Road, 5-kilometre upgrade to the Trans-Canada Highway, 6 new intersections and 29 new bridges. And when this project is complete, Mr. Speaker, it'll do 101 kilometres of free-flowing traffic around the city of Calgary, and it's just great news for all of Calgary.
Hear, hear. The Honourable the Member for Calgary-Glenmore.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the Minister for that answer. Given that while there are many benefits of the Ring Road, there are also annoyances, such as increased road noise, particularly noticeable where previously there wasn't even a road before. And given that road noise will likely increase as usage grows after the west section of Stoney is completed, and given that the road noise affects my constituents' quality of life, can the Minister please share what he is doing to prevent and mitigate the spillover of noise from the Ring Road in Cedar Brae and Woodbine neighbourhoods in Southwest Calgary in particular?
The Honourable the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In all of Calgary, they're going to get about $2.2 billion over 3 years in capital projects. And the member of Calgary-Glenmore has been a fierce champion when it comes to advocating for her constituents for the need of sound attenuation along the Ring Road. And I'm happy to say that in Budget 2023, we have that project committed into it. So, Mr. Speaker, she can rest assured to know that her constituents can get a better night's sleep.
The Honourable Member.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. You know, that is fabulous news. Thanks to the Minister for that. Given that the Ring Road is not the only vital roadway for Calgary's local economy, and given that our government is committed to improving Deerfoot Trail, the busiest roadway in Alberta, and given that the UCP government is committed to driving our province forward, unlike the NDP who want to just force a just transition on Albertans and put thousands of Albertans out of jobs, can the Minister please share the economic benefits of improving Deerfoot Trail and how that will affect our province?
Minister.
Budget 2023 has $430 million for Deerfoot Trail upgrades within the City of Calgary. That means about 900,000 hours a year with an economic benefit of $23 million for Calgary and the region. Mr. Speaker, that means these Deerfoot upgrades will actually have 15% faster for Calgarians to get to work and also 22% faster time for Calgarians to get home from work. And, Mr. Speaker, overall, it just helps families spend more time together versus staring at taillights at the end of the day.
Hear, hear. Honourable members, my apologies. The question period timer did not sound, but I can assure you that the 50 minutes allotted for question period has expired. Honourable members, we will proceed immediately to the remainder of the daily routine, given the close approximation of estimates to follow. If you are leaving the chamber, I encourage you to do so quickly, quietly, as we will continue with the remainder of the routine.
Special committees.
Order.
Presenting petitions. Notices of motions.
The honourable member for Edmonton Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give oral notice to Bills 207, Jobs and Investment Act, a bill to help to grow and diversify our economy here in the province of Alberta.
Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Are there tablings? Seeing none, the clerk.
Tablings to the clerk.
Honourable members, that brings us to points of order. And at 2:24, the Honourable Opposition House Leader rose on a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I suspect you know why I'm rising on this point of order. 23J uses abusive or insulting language of a nature likely to create disorder. Essentially, I rise on a point of order that there was language being used that offends the dignity of the Assembly. The Minister for Jobs, Economy and Northern Development repeatedly used the phrase suck and blow. And it's very visual language, Mr. Speaker, bordering on profane. And I think the fact that the minister was so delighted with himself that he repeated it over and over again makes my point for me. If it is language that the grade 6 classes in the gallery would titter at, I think it offends the dignity of this place. And so I rise on this point of order. I realize unparliamentary language is a difficult thing to rule on. It's often the speaker's judgment that will make this call, but I think in this case, having all members yelling at each other about sucking and blowing is something we should not have in this House, and I hope you will rule this a point of order and we can avoid this language in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have the benefit of the blues, but I don't really need them. I did hear the Honourable Minister say the term suck and blow a number of times. But Mr. Speaker, in this chamber, you cannot fabricate outrage, okay? The language used, if the member opposite is going to suggest that there is a sexual connotation, should have a conversation with the member from Edmonton Rutherford, who on a number of occasions has referred to bills in a phallic nature, saying it's not the size of the bill, but how you use it, and I end quote. And that has never been ruled a point of order, though I have called it a number of times. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe that saying suck and blow in this context is necessarily a point of order. I can assure you that the member on our side of the House was not referring to it in any inappropriate manner, so much as to say you can't inhale and exhale at the same time when the members opposite are saying one thing but doing the other. So I don't find that this is a point of order, and I hope that if it's used again, it's also not called a point of order, because, Mr. Speaker, we know that in some instances when phrases and words are used repeatedly, then they become disruptive to the chamber. This, Mr. Speaker, I don't believe is one of them, and I'd hope that we would not fabricate a point of order to something like this. Thank you.
Hope the Government House Leader wasn't implying that the Speaker would fabricate a point of order in any parameters. I do have the benefit of the blues, and I do have the benefit of this exact situation. And in fact, it took place immediately prior to an estimates meeting on March 20th, 2013, on page 671 of Hansard on that particular occasion, when a member used the language around sucking and blowing And in that occasion, a point of order was not found, but a caution was provided with respect to language that is likely to create disorder. And I will concur with the Speaker Swazdeski in the strongest possible way. As we saw today, this language certainly didn't lend itself to creating order, as such case could be made that it created disorder. Having said that, I will provide a caution to the Honourable Minister of Jobs, the Economy and Northern Development with respect to the use of such language, but it is not a point of order. Honourable members, at 2:34, the official opposition, and I consider that matter dealt with and concluded. At 2:34, the official opposition Deputy House Leader rose on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to 23I, and I think it's always good to have H&J with it. I don't have the benefit of blues, but in response to my question, Minister of Municipal Affairs did say something on the lines that member opposite is making it up. She specifically used making up and directed it at myself personally. That is clearly offside 23I, and it's a point of order. Thank you.
The Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you'll indulge me for a very quick moment, referring to last point of order, I would never suggest the Speaker is fabricating a point of order, just a point of clarification. And second off, I will provide clarification and caution to our member on that term. With regards to this point of order, I believe it's a matter of interpretation. What I heard from the member, the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs, was the member's opposite. Certainly saying the member opposite would be a point of order, but without referring to one member in particular, it'd be difficult to call this a point of order, and so I would disagree, not a point of order, but rather a matter of debate.
Are there others? Honourable members, I do have the benefit of the blues, and I am prepared to rule. And in this occasion, the blues report the statements of the Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs as just like what we saw with the members, being plural, opposite, and making up information about crop insurance, for example. Point of order was called and she proceeded. Well, I have provided caution around the use of making things up, making information up as well. I concur with the official opposition Deputy House Leader. If, in fact, she had have said the member opposite, it certainly would have been a point of order. But today, it will be caution with making accusations that large groups of people make information up or otherwise. This is not a point of order. I consider the matter dealt with and concluded. I see the official opposition House Leader rising for some reason.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to seek unanimous consent to return to notices of motions.
Honourable members, a unanimous consent request has been made to revert to notices of motions. I will ask only one question. Is there anyone opposed to reverting to unanimous consent to revert to notice of motions? Is there anyone opposed? Unanimous consent is granted. Notices of motions. The official opposition House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the entire House. On behalf of the member for Edmonton Northwest and for clarity of Hansard, I just want to make sure that we all know that he rose to give oral notice for Bill 207, Jobs and Investment Incentives Proposal Act. Thank you.
Out of an abundance of caution, and for clarity's sake, will you please just read the name of the bill which is on the order, which you intend to place on the order paper? The exact verbiage, please. Just the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Jobs and Investment Incentives Proposal Act.
Honourable members, we are at orders of the day, orders du jour. Pursuant to Standing Order 59.15B, the Assembly stands adjourned until tomorrow at 1:30. The Legislative Policy Committee will convene this afternoon, this evening, and tomorrow morning for the consideration of the main estimates. This afternoon, the Standing Committee on Resource Stewardship will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Affordability and Utilities in the Grassland Room. And the Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future will consider the estimates for Executive Council in the Rocky Mountain Room. This evening, the Standing Committee on Resource Stewardship will continue the consideration of the main estimates on affordability and utilities in the Rocky Mountain Room, and the Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Trade, Immigration, and Multiculturalism in the Glassland Room. Easy for me to say. Tomorrow morning, the Standing Committee on Resource Stewardship will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Treasury, Board, and Finance in the Rocky Mountain Room, and the Standing Committee on Families and Communities will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Seniors, Community, and Social Services in the Grasslands Room. Honourable members, the House stands adjourned until 1:30 tomorrow afternoon.